What happened? What actually happened? All footage used in this video is from trailers and is under fair use. Anyone trying to say that it isn't or trying to take that away from me can go ahead and suck me. Thanks. In the best case scenario, TV series based on video games that make their own adaptation, or even movies based on video games that make their own adaptation, have an opportunity to bring in people that would otherwise not involve themselves with it. Whether that's because they just simply don't like playing video games, whether they disagree with playing video games, or whether they just didn't know about certain ones. When you can get people that wouldn't ever set foot in a video game shop, or would never touch a video game, never touch a controller, unless it was like the Wii or the DS or something, but like everyone had one of them. It shows that there is an audience out there for this type of stuff. It's untapped potential, and like the amount of fun you can have in video games, especially with your friends, is just unmatched. And it would be great to be able to expose people like that to these types of moments that are just so funny and you can't find them anywhere else. You'll never laugh as hard at anything. Not the funniest film or the funniest TV series ever.
Nice one, mate. Nice one. Get me fingers red and you slash her away. I want to play a different game. How many times have I died? Oh, God.
You're just right behind me, lad. Stop sniffing my ears.
Behind you.
The fuck you doing, lad? What's that magic spell, lad? Retardo.
I'm sitting on your knee.
I knew people that wouldn't ever touch video games, or they just thought it was some sort of a thing that, yeah, like, you just stay in your room all day and play video games, that really enjoyed The Last of Us, and a lot of people who didn't actually know that it was even a video game to begin with. When you plaster video game movie or video game TV series over a lot of things, it can turn off a lot of people, as I said, because some people will be alienated by it, and other people are such a big fan of the games that they won't want to watch it because they would think it's too inaccurate, the casting's been done poorly, or they will just think that it could have been done better. So that's the best case scenario and the worst case scenario really laid out, and it can turn a lot of people off. So I took a prolonged break, you could say. I mean, it's a bit of a gap between this and my last video. Jesus, February 20th. Oh my god. Okay, so it's been a while. So yeah, I came back and I was just like wondering what has been going on with everything.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And boy, everything has happened. Specifically related to a certain video game movie, which I didn't think would do very well anyway. I knew the Borderlands movie was coming out because that's the last video I made on it, which was about the cast and the fact that it was probably one of the worst castings I've ever seen for a movie in my entire life. Say what you want about other movies that involve video games and TV series that involve video games, but at least sometimes, or the majority of the time, it's not the casting that makes them bad. It is the movie's writers and their directors, because you can tell when you watch them that they have either, one, never played any of the games that they are basing their TV series / movie on, two, don't know how to translate a game which you play as a character to something where you are watching a character, or three, are just so out of touch with gaming itself. And the biggest problems I have personally when watching stuff like that is going, they would never do that. They would never do this. They would never go here. They would never say this. And it's the same thing with, who's the guy that was in the Witcher game played Sue? Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill, what a man. He was the type of person to actually do this. He was one of the only actors I actually know which made a movie like this, which just point blank refused to do certain scenes or say certain things because he knew that Geralt just wouldn't say them. And he quit because of this, in big quotation marks. The show's creators and him himself have not actually given a specific reason, but he did mention a balance between the showrunner's vision and his love for the books. So it's basically the exact same thing of, I wanted them to do this because they'd actually do this, and they basically said, shove it up your arse, this is our show, not yours. And then he was like, yeah, fuck you, and quit.
That's quite big. Impressive.
He's played The Witcher, so he knew that Geralt would either do or say certain things, and he clearly had a clash with the writers about things that they wanted to write for his character to do/say, and he was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, he would never do this. I would never do that. And big up for him to say that, because a lot of people wouldn't say it. Obviously, you had Michael Fassbender in the Assassin's Creed movie, which came out, I was going to say a few years ago, but it was over 7 years ago now, so that makes me feel really old. And that also flopped 18% on Rotten Tomatoes, 5.6 on IMDb, so just above 36% on Metacritic, which isn't great. But if you look at something like movies of video games, they tend to do a bit worse than a TV series. And a lot of the time, I feel like it is because of what they base it on. For example, right, Assassin's Creed is one of those games where you really are playing as the character, right? I'm not saying that in other games you're not, because that's literally the point of video games. But if you look at the most recent success of a video game translated into a TV show specifically, which is The Last of Us, the reason why that did so well is because the casting was great, apart from a lot of people didn't really like Ellie, but when I started to watch it, I was the same, and then I figured that, hey, she just looks a bit different, she acts very similar, and the casting was great anyway. It wasn't the casting that I was concerned about going into it. It was the fact that it wouldn't translate properly. But The Last of Us in itself is sort of like a movie game, if you know what I mean. Like, Detroit Become Human wouldn't work as a TV series because it already is a TV series, pretty much, but you make the decisions. So watching a TV series of it would just be like watching a worse version of the game you could just go and play, because in the TV series you couldn't make decisions unless they did some Black Mirror shit with it.
I am ashamed.
The material itself was already pretty good, so all they needed to do was cut out the 6 hours of you picking up random shit off the floor and putting it in your bag, and then just turning that into Joel going, wow, we walked here and found some supplies, which literally would be like 7 hours of gameplay that they've cut down to like 2 seconds of dialogue. And then the other TV series, The Witcher, was also based on a game which is very much dialogue based. Now, it's nothing like The Last of Us, but it's not like Call of Duty, which was why I think Fallout was a very big surprise to a lot of people, because whilst these two games, Fallout and The Witcher, are very, I'd say, similar in the way that you play them, they're both games which are open world, very dialogue heavy, relationship heavy games.
You can't just put something between two pieces of bread and claim it's a sandwich. Does that mean a loaf of bread is technically a bread sandwich?
Technically, yes, but you wouldn't eat it all at once like that, so it doesn't matter. How you hold it matters.
Talk all you want, man. You put that piece of Mirelurk meat between two pieces of bread, but it still ain't a sandwich.
Well, what the hell would you call it then?
Disgusting. That's what.
They could be translated into TV series, but it wouldn't be as easy as something like The Last of Us, which, when you have somebody like Henry Cavill in The Witcher, you already know from the interviews he does that he would make it as accurate as possible and try and make it as good as possible. And then I think just good writing helped that, as well as the fact that that type of setting is a lot easier to pull off, and that's been done to death as well. So people who have done similar things can probably see how they could just jump straight into it and sort of hit the ground running. Something like Fallout hasn't really been done before, I don't think, in any form of media. So having it be translated so well, especially considering Bethesda was involved, is kind of surprising. And a lot of people did see when the first got announced that it would basically be like the Halo TV show, which is another thing that I was going to talk about. Why did something like Fallout go so well, but something like Halo go so bad? Now, one of them is the writing, and another one is the cast. So you had Pablo Schreiber, who played Master Chief. Now, I have seen him in other things before, and a lot of people have probably seen him in other things before, but this is probably what he got the most hate for out of any role he's ever done, and it wasn't even his fault. Like, he wasn't the person writing the fucking script for it. And it's, like, kind of ironic, because the original series of Halo was so bad that I thought it would have got cancelled, but somehow they managed to bring it back for another series, which is just, I actually am quite surprised and impressed that they even thought that it would work again. And then it ultimately got cancelled this year. It's not going to continue as far as I am aware. Editing LFX here. Just want to retcon what I just said. It has been cancelled technically, but only by Paramount Plus. So Paramount Plus are not supporting the show anymore, and they will not fund the show or platform the show anymore. But apparently, according to the Economic Times, there may still be hope for the Halo series, because reports indicate that Xbox 343 Industries and Amblin Television are actively seeking other platforms to continue the series with a potential third season. So it's cancelled, but it could be uncancelled. If you're going to be so shit at writing a show that even a 5-minute short from 2009 about Halo 3 was better with no budget whatsoever, you kind of have it coming. It's actually kind of weird as well, because I'm looking at the scores on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, and it's a 7.3 and 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, with 83% of Google users liking the show. I'm no conspiracy theorist, but pretty much everyone hated this show. I don't know if it was the second season that kind of recuperated the score a bit, but I remember loads of Halo fans making videos on it. The Ackman and Angry Joe, they're the main ones, making videos on how bad it was, and they talk for at least an hour, or not 2 hours, about how bad it is, the plot holes, how the writing was terrible. Master Chief takes his helmet off and basically never wears it again. He has sex with a fucking Covenant spy. Like, that's not Halo, that's a drama/romantic plot that shouldn't be anywhere near an action TV series.
Paramount 343, why are you subjecting me to torture and character assassination of one of the greatest, most iconic video game characters of all time?
You done fucked it up!
The show pretty much fell apart the second Master Chief revealed his face. It was not earned, it was not emotional. 40 minutes into the first episode, he takes his helmet off and just ruins any potential mystery, any potential build-up to what he looked like.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Do the showrunners not understand the impact and legacy of Master Chief's face and what revealing it actually means?
They waste no fucking time.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, right off the bat, I was
like, what the fuck?
You're not gonna at least tease us or anything? You're just like, I'm here.
I don't understand why they didn't just elect to retell the game's original story.
It's like, but why?
It's almost a joke how often he tries to not wear his armor. You know what I mean?
One of the biggest things to come out is that the showrunner didn't even fucking bother to play the games. They ignored the games, basically. They came out and said it. And honestly, it shows.
Then there's the sex scene, which, god damn it.
With bad writing, poor decisions, you're taking a license and you're, you know, kind of
doing whatever you want.
At that moment, this was no longer Master Chief, it was John.
And then we move into this year, and specifically the most recent video game flop out there, which is, of course, the Borderlands movie. Now, from what I actually know about it, because I refuse to watch it, I'm not giving my money to the people who made this. I will wait until it's available somewhere else. It's got a lot of plot holes from things I haven't even watched, like just looking at a trailer. It's got massive plot holes, and also not just the plot holes, like just things that just don't make any sense, right? So off the top of my head, Jamie Lee Curtis is way too old for a role that should be played by someone who's 20 years younger than her. Same thing goes for Cate Blanchett. She's playing a 27-year-old, and she is in her late 40s, I believe. The person who plays Tiny Tina doesn't look like she would be Tiny Tina. She just looks like she's cosplaying as someone who is Tiny Tina and isn't really loud enough to be Tiny Tina. I know that might not be her fault, but just not portrayed very well. Tiny Tina says she came to Pandora to blow stuff up, even though she didn't come to Pandora, she was born on the planet. Roland is played by a comedic actor when he is ironically probably the only serious person in the entire fucking franchise. Everyone else is always goofy and Roland was the complete opposite, so I don't understand why they hired a comedic actor to play his role, yet didn't hire comedic actors to play the roles of people who are actually supposed to be funny. Guy played Krieg, was really good. I'm not criticizing the guy who played Krieg, but Krieg in the movie makes no sense for 3 reasons. Number 1, the movie isn't even rated 18 or whatever Americans call it. I think it's R, because we've got 15 theirs as M, we've got 18 theirs as R. So it wasn't rated as an 18 or as the highest you can rate it for the most violent character in the entire game. I don't understand. 2, there is no Vault Hunters from Borderlands 2, Borderlands pre-sequel, Borderlands 3. But there's 1 Vault Hunter from Borderlands 2. So there is Lilith and Roland, but there isn't Mordecai, there isn't any Brick, there isn't Maya.
Oh, look out! Prince Harry's had a few drinks and now he thinks he's hard.
I am hard.
You're making a movie about a game, and you don't have one of the only substantial relationships that has developed in the entire franchise. There's Lilith and Roland, and there's Maya and Krieg, and I swear, Maya and Krieg shit all over Lilith and Roland's relationship. In a game where the dialogue is probably there because it helps the gameplay, unlike something like Last of Us where it is the gameplay. When you have 2 characters with chemistry and a plot you actually want to listen to, and not just spam the skip button and then start shooting things, you should probably include it in a piece of media where you can't skip it and start shooting things because you are watching a movie. The nuanced and intricate relationship that Maya and Krieg have would have been amazing to see done in another form of media that isn't a video game. Obviously, we've got a few cutscenes of them together, and then the entire Krieg and the Fantastic Fuster Club DLC. Can't believe I just said that in 1 sentence. I usually have to do that take about 5 times. It would have been amazing to see their complicated relationship at least partially shown in a movie. But I think that Borderlands probably would have been done a bit better if they originally planned it as a TV series, and honestly, I think that's kind of the same situation for a lot of video game-based media that gets turned into movies or TV shows. Video games, most of the time, are very, very long, and you only have a certain amount of time to tell a story in a movie, right? 90 minutes, sometimes 2 hours, and you can tell a lot of the time that they're trying to appease to the fans, they're trying to tell a story, but also they're trying to tell a story which a game is telling in a 30-hour span, and then they're trying to fit that all into an hour and a half, and then include references, and include all these characters, and include all these scenes, and then you have to have a beginning which establishes it all, and then you've got to have a satisfying ending or whatever, and it doesn't seem to work. But TV series have up to 20, 30, 40 hours that they can make characters, make scenes, cover different plots, and different things that go on. It makes a lot more sense because, for example, Borderlands, there is so many characters and there's also so many different intricacies to the plot, you can't sort of fit it into one movie. It feels like a lot of the time with movies that are video game based, you will just have so many scenes that are rushed or they don't explain things, and then you'll have other scenes that are just so long for so many wrong reasons. Planning them out as TV series doesn't always work, but I think it's probably a better approach as it just gives people a lot more creative freedom to be like, okay, so for this episode we can just focus on these 2 characters, and then for this episode we can focus on the main plot. In a movie you can't do that. They'll have like 15 minutes and then you have to move back to the main plot because 15 minutes is quite a lot of a movie when there's only 90 minutes to work with. You know what I mean? Right, let's imagine something real quick. So I've just covered all these shows and movies. Let's just see, if we switch them round and made movies into TV series and TV series into movies, would they work? Would The Last of Us have worked as a 2-hour movie? No, obviously it wouldn't. It would have to rush absolutely everything. It would not have anywhere near the amount of weight it does with Joel and Ellie's relationship. Would Fallout work as a movie? Potentially, but you'd only be able to tell one of the characters' stories. Obviously, in the Fallout TV series, you're not just telling one character's story, they're telling a few, so they'd only have to focus on one, so maybe the Vault Dwellers. Would Assassin's Creed work as a TV series? I think it kind of would, honestly. It would sort of remind me of The Witcher, like a period type of drama, you know? It's more realistic, though, Assassin's Creed than The Witcher, because there's fucking magic spells in The Witcher, but we move. Would Halo have worked as a movie? I honestly think it would have been way better as a movie. If they just told the original game's plot, it would have been good as a TV series. But as a movie, you can definitely fit a lot of stuff into that. And considering Halo is a very action-packed and action-based game, obviously first-person shooter, it's gonna be, you can fit a lot of action scenes, which usually in a game would take up to 2 hours, into like a 5-minute segment. And they do that in the actual show, but it feels like a lot of the time action scenes are just way too long or way too short. But I think a Halo movie would do good, maybe basing it on ODSTs. A drop squad would have been really, really interesting to see, sort of like the beginning of Titanfall 2. And then, Borderlands. As I said, probably would have worked as a TV show, but it's not as simple as that, because the casting calls were just so wrong with Borderlands movie. I feel like they probably would have needed to have different directors or writers or whoever made up the cast also be replaced, because it doesn't matter if it is a TV series, if you still have the same characters played by the same people, I just don't think it would have worked. And then you would have to endure it for 10 hours or 20 hours and not for 1 hour and how many fucking minutes this movie actually was. I would have legitimately wanted the Borderlands movie in my head to be one of two things. It would have either been the complete first game retold, but better, because the first game was kind of a bit trashy when it comes to the story. So you can start people who've never heard of Borderlands off from the complete start, and for people who have basically been involved with Borderlands since it came out, have a better retelling of the first game. It's a win-win. You're making it so people who have never seen it can be more invested because they are starting off where we all started off, and you can have it where we now get a conclusive story.
Day 37 under
Gearbox.
We are facing intermittent power failures, which...
Okay, very funny. Now I'm gonna turn the lights off again. When they come back on, I want all my
good stories
back the way it was. Yeah, okay.
When I first saw that there was 2 of the original Borderlands Vault Hunters, but not the other 2, but then only 1 from any of the other games, it also made me concerned, just knowing that they're including basically all of these characters for fan service and not actually to make the story any better or to serve any plot points. When it comes to the actual movie, when I can and will watch it is kind of up for debate. As I said, I'm just going to wait until it is out of cinemas. And you know it's bad when somebody like me, like literally just look at my channel. Look what videos I predominantly make. You know it's bad when a movie about a franchise I love comes out, and not only do I criticize it, I point blank refuse to watch it. And I think that just speaks for itself. It just says it all. I could literally go on for hours about how bad this movie is and all of the things that are wrong with it, but you're more likely to get conclusive evidence from multiple people who have actually watched the movie and have listed the plot points. But for me, this is just ranting about my disappointment with this movie specifically, and also just looking into how different movies based on video games don't work, and how nowadays it seems like we're going into movies or TV series sort of expecting them to be bad and are surprised when they're good. So when a actually decent show comes around, like The Last of Us or like Fallout, a lot of people are saying to themselves, is it good because it's not shit? Or is it good because it's actually good? And especially for people who aren't really involved in video games, it's a bit of a mixed bag when they say, oh, right, it's based on a video game. Well, I've never played it, so I'm not going to watch it. And then the other end of, oh, well, it's based on a video game. I've not played it, so I'm sure this movie would probably help me to get into it if I'm feeling it. Borderlands does none of that. It is bad for people who haven't played the games, and it's bad for people who have played the games. The only reason I could think a video game movie in this sense would be good is if you are a child and you like explosions and random things happening and you don't really pay attention to plot points at all. I also find in other scenarios, with specifically stories that don't really have one conclusive ending, that the lore can sometimes overwhelm a lot of people trying to make a movie adaptation, which is sort of what happened with Five Nights at Freddy's and Borderlands, it seemed, because when I saw the trailers for both the movies, and then I saw people analysing the trailers and then analysing the films after they came out, it was kind of a mishmash of all of the games sort of put together, which you can definitely see with Borderlands, but also Five Nights at Freddy's as well. Now, if you've never heard of Five Nights at Freddy's, God forbid, or if you've never played any of the games, or you've never heard of the movie, or if you've only watched the movie and you have no idea what I'm talking about, Five Nights at Freddy's has multiple games, and I'm pretty sure it's like 9 or 10 at this point, and the lore for the established universe is insane. There's so much to cover, and you only have around an hour and a half in most instances in movies to actually cover the amount that you want to, and also it's very hard when you don't have that rating of age that you really want, so you don't have an 18 for one of the most fucked up franchises in all of gaming, where people are going around getting murdered and where one guy is making robots that can stuff kids inside of them. FNAF tried to sort of please all of its fans at once by including so many references and having so many things mishmashed with other things, to the point where a lot of it didn't really make sense because the story had been so mishmashed and changed to the point where you sort of go, like, is this really what I wanted? I sort of just wanted a retelling of the first game, or at least the first restaurant where Five Nights at Freddy's was based. And now you've got Vanessa, and you've got William Afton not being called William Afton, and then you've got Mike Schmidt, who is actually supposed to be William Afton's son, not actually being William Afton's son. It's very confusing. And Blumhouse did an amazing job with what they were sort of working with. I mean, the movie was delayed and pushed back and rewritten so many times to the point where a lot of people didn't even think it would come out. But overall, I think if you haven't seen the games of Five Nights at Freddy's before, you could sort of go into this movie and not really care. If you have seen and played the games of Five Nights at Freddy's, there's sort of an aspect of it that you can enjoy if you don't look too deep into it, you know? So in that instance, that was a video game movie that I think did pretty well for what it was working with. I mean, years and years of lore, decades and decades to cover, and they have to do it in such a short period of time. So yeah, I think they did alright, to be fair, even though it did technically flop. And so we arrive at the end. Very interesting to cover quite a few different genres and quite a few different game franchises in this video, and sort of go through why they fail or why they succeed. It's a really fine line between success and failure, and honestly, I don't really see the lines being muffled any more than they are right now. Within 1 year, you've had 2 very successful TV series in Fallout and The Last of Us, and then a very, very dismal game movie in Borderlands. And I don't think I've ever seen that before, where 2 things have done so great and one has done so terrible in such a short period of time, especially when it comes to video game movies. Now, of course, failure and success isn't simple, and things like this are not only very hard to pull off, but are also very hard to even start. Go through, cast people, make the movie, direct the movie, write the movie, everything that is involved with making and writing TV series and movies is incredibly difficult. So the fact that it's been done and even released at all is somewhat impressive. I mean, as I said for Five Nights at Freddy's, Blumhouse production, there's so many delays that they had with Five Nights at Freddy's, to the point where even the movie getting a release date was a success in itself. And for some, it just isn't meant to be. So whether it's casting, whether it's the writers doing a terrible job, whether it's the cast themselves not exactly acting like they should, there's many things you should really look at, and honestly it was really interesting to actually look into this and see why things like this happen. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. It's a bit different to what I usually do. Most of the time I do cover games in this sort of way, but I thought covering different types of games and then actually covering movies and TV shows is a bit different to what I usually do. But most of the time I like analysing things anyway, not just playing the game, so hopefully you enjoyed. I've got a new video coming out very soon, hopefully. I've been working on it for a while now, and it's over 3.5 hours long, and I've been working on it for almost the entire year now. So hopefully I can get it out. But other than that, guys, I hope you did enjoy. If you made it all the way to the end, that's much appreciated. You know what to do, subscribe and like and all that. And I will see you in the next video, guys. Peace.